A lot of people put down or take something called the spiritual path, the mystic path, to be something less than scientific, something that suggests superstitious times before science informed all of us on what reality really is. And that's too bad, because there's more than one workable and valid interpretation of the mystic path. And at least some of those interpretations allow for a person to derive joy from not just the things that make the limited self happy, not just the things that are on the list of meaningful or pleasurable objects of achievement, goals to set and reach, but what this path, this orientation and set of practices, whatever they may be, whether they be Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity or Islam or tribal, and that means any traditional tribal cultures anywhere in the world, the real journey and goal, they're much the same, though dressed so differently, dressed in language, but also other dressings, of course, ritual objects, etc. Anyway, the whole magic is full of offerings, and one of them is a power, an ever evolving ability to be happy, not just with getting what you want, but happy getting anything at all. So somehow working with this idea that you can derive joy from things that are unpleasant as well. It doesn't mean that you seek unpleasant things, but what it means is that with your familiar ego consciousness, or let's just say the sense of self that is most familiar to you, with that self you pay, as I've said in past videos, pay all of your attention to the unlimited essence of itself. I think of images like plugging an extension cord into itself, you know. And if you were to plug an electrical extension cord into itself, what happens? You create a circuit. And if you take the familiar and limited you and start paying attention to the less familiar and completely unlimited essence of you, and if you hold that, and holding that in a beautiful way is called meditation. Meditation can be described as allowing your attention to come into a focus and a scope wherein it's all gathered and placed upon its very self. But one of the great outcomes is this ability to derive joy, not so much from all the list of good things that you hoped for coming true or being obtained by you, and all the list of things that you would not want to see happen, you know, a successful avoidance of those. Nothing like that anymore. It becomes instead much more about taking the labels good and bad off of the ordinary moments of life. God knows that we have enough life moments where we know that without a doubt, if we're going to speak with respect to ordinary experience, we're going to say that this is a bad situation, right? Life is full of those, and obviously way more full for some than others. But if you can get some breathing space, and if you can just begin to start with the ordinary moments of life and start to say, you know what? There are many of those moments in which you can't identify really if the situation is good or bad. So start right there. You don't even have to decide if a situation is good or bad or an outcome is good or bad, because plenty of those are already naturally neutral. So start right there to bring your attention to those and say, you know what? Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Maybe I like this outcome, maybe I don't. Maybe I enjoy being near this person, maybe I don't. But the reality is, I'm here. Consciousness is here with me. And when anything that comes to you can be received into a version of you, into a version of your awareness that is more and more imbued with that limitless consciousness that is the essence of the you that is most familiar to yourself, the essence of the self that is less familiar, but now you're on this path. You're working with yourself. You're working with your sense of self. And you're, for example, asking the question, where exactly does my self end and everything else begin? And when you start to experience and when you start to discover that those lines are impossible to draw, really, that there is a permeability and elasticity and a dissolution, really, of boundary between self and other, self and the universe, familiar self and less familiar, mysterious, limitless self. Familiar, limited, plugged into, melting into, unfamiliar, unlimited. And again, a great byproduct of that is joy coming not from specific objects of desire or outcomes desired, but joy coming from anything or from most anything, hopefully from anything. It's crazy to say this. In a sense, it will be seen as crazy, but I am 100% sure that there is an essence to which there is nothing bothersome. And I'm sure that that is the essence of everything. And in a familiarization with that, then whatever you see becomes a source of joy. Now that's really, really, really difficult if what you see is a bomb being dropped, if what you see is a car accident, if what you see is somebody in the height of suffering. However, one thing is certain, suffering does not last forever. And yet this basis of existence, this foundational consciousness, does last forever. And another thing is certain, and that is that if, when you have an opportunity, when you are not suffering so much that you cannot pay attention, if you start to cultivate, if you start to devote yourself with consistency, but also with passion to paying attention to this beauty essence that will then start to blend with the attention that you're most familiar with, then you will start to see that this world we live in really does manifest from positive and negative, from night and day, and frankly from good and evil. And the fact that good and evil change as we change means that one can more quickly get into a state of mind where, whether it's your own suffering or the suffering of others, you will be able to you'll be freer to deal with that suffering if you are living in and living as the freedom that is characteristic of this beautiful, let's call it God awareness. But of course, when we say God, we mean truly unlimited. So that term may be problematic for some. Maybe we could call it the utmost unlimited good. And walking and living and going from dream to sleep to being awake, from dream to sleep to being awake, over and over and over again, this consistent, steady essence of those states, which is a state that doesn't change, offers you the ability to derive joy from much, much more than the limited self can take to be causes of joy. It enables you to derive joy from the vast and ever-changing array of good and bad visions, good and bad sounds, good and bad circumstances and people and situations.